The wind came early that morning, cold and clean, sweeping across the fields of Camp Halden. The sun hadn't yet burned through the fog, and the air smelled faintly of oil, steel, and dew-soaked grass. Down the firing range, rows of recruits were lined up in neat formation, helmets tilted, boots sharp, rifles gleaming. It was the quarterly marksmanship test, the kind of morning that separated the careful from the careless. Off to the side, an old Ford pickup rolled slowly down the gravel road. The engine coughed once, then died with a long sigh. From the driver's side stepped a man whose posture told you he'd carried a rifle long before most of these boys had learned to walk. His name was William Hayes, though few here would have recognized it. His hair was white at the edges, his gait uneven, a quiet limp that came and went like a habit. He wore a faded windbreaker zipped up to the throat, and over his shoulder hung a canvas bag, the kind that had seen too many miles and too little rest. A young soldier broke formation and jogged toward him. "Grandpa, you made it," he said, grinning. "Private Ethan Hayes, William's grandson." William smiled, just a flicker of warmth in the cold morning air. "Wouldn't miss it for the world, son," he said softly. "Thought I'd come watch you young men show the old folks how it's done." A few recruits nearby chuckled, not cruelly, just the kind of laugh people give when they don't know what else to do with their assumptions. One of them whispered, "Guess they're letting the museum tour watch today." Ethan ignored them, but his jaw tightened. The instructors noticed the exchange. One of them, Sergeant Miller, walked over with polite professionalism, the kind reserved for strangers. "Sir," he said, "you're welcome to watch from behind the line, just gets loud out here." William nodded. "Loud never bothered me." Before sitting, he set the canvas bag on the ground and unrolled it slowly. Inside was a long, dark rifle wrapped in cloth. The recruits stopped mid-conversation when they saw it. It wasn't government issue. It wasn't modern. It was something older, a Winchester Model 70, polished smooth by years of use and care. Sergeant Miller raised an eyebrow. "You still shoot that thing?" William smiled faintly. "She still breathes fine," he said. "You just have to know how to listen." Miller chuckled. "Might want to hang that one up in a museum, sir." "Maybe," William said, "but she doesn't like walls much." Ethan shifted nervously. "He used to shoot a bit," he offered. Miller grinned, humoring him. "Well, we've got an open lane at number 9 if you'd like to take a couple shots for fun." The word fun hung awkwardly in the cool air, like a dare that wasn't supposed to matter. William looked downrange and nodded once. "Lane 9 will do." He walked slower than the others, each step deliberate. The recruits followed him with their eyes, some out of curiosity, some out of disbelief. When he reached the bench, he adjusted his stance, set the rifle down gently, and ran his fingers along the barrel. The metal caught the morning light, a dull glint of something old refusing to fade. He looked through the scope, exhaled once, and squeezed the trigger. He shoot one bullet, the sound echoed, sharp and perfect, but the shot went wide. Laughter rippled softly across the line. Sergeant Miller clapped his hands together. "All right, folks, back to work. Let's not waste any ammo." But William didn't step back. He didn't say a word. He simply whispered, "One more." Miller turned, half smiling. "Sir, maybe it's best if—" "One more," William repeated, calm but firm. Something in his tone stilled the air. Even the wind seemed to listen. He took his time. Adjusted his glasses, steadied his shoulders. The tremor in his hands disappeared. He inhaled slow, deep, certain, and then he fired one more time. The echo carried longer this time, rolling down the range like thunder that refused to end. When it faded, there was nothing but silence. Miller frowned and leaned into the scope, then leaned again. His jaw tightened. "Holy hell," he muttered. Private Ethan looked up. "What did he hit it?" But Miller didn't answer. He stepped aside and motioned for another instructor. One by one they looked. One by one they froze. At the far end of lane 9, the target, a laminated silhouette, flapped lightly in the wind. The bullseye wasn't just hit, it was split. A clean tear straight through the center, like a razor cut through paper. The laughter was gone, so was the smirk. Every man there knew that shot wasn't luck. William lowered the rifle and nodded slightly, as if finishing a simple task. "That'll do," he said quietly. A whisper moved through the line. "Who is he? Did you see that?" Guy didn't even brace. Sergeant Miller swallowed hard. "Name's William Hayes," he said finally. Then he paused. The name landed heavy, somewhere between disbelief and recognition. From the back of the line, a gruff voice spoke. "You don't mean the William Hayes, Fort Bragg 84? No one answered, but Miller's face said enough. Within minutes, someone had jogged off toward the admin office. Inside, dust-covered computers flickered to life for the first time in years. Old records scrolled across the screen. There it was, a scanned photograph. A young soldier kneeling beside a paper target, split dead center. Under it, Fort Bragg, July 1984. Longest standing open-range bullseye, unbroken. Outside, the sound of tires crunching gravel drew everyone's attention. A black SUV pulled in, the kind that only carried command. From it stepped Colonel Avery, the base commander. He walked the length of the range, hat in hand, until he stood before the old man. William didn't stand. He just looked up, calm and steady. "Mr. Hayes," the colonel said softly, "we've kept a plaque inside for 40 years. Your name's been on it the whole time. Most of us read it once a year. None of us knew you were still around." William nodded almost shyly. "Didn't come here for applause, Colonel." "I know," Avery said, "but that shot today, that was legacy." No one moved. Even the recruits who had laughed stood straighter now, their rifles suddenly heavier in their hands. Private Ethan looked at his grandfather differently, with pride and a quiet awe. It wasn't the pride of fame, it was the pride of understanding. Later that afternoon, after the crowds had drifted away, Ethan sat with his grandfather inside the range office. The old Winchester rested across his knees. "You never told me," Ethan said softly. William looked out the window, where the wind moved through the trees like old ghosts. "Wasn't much to tell. You held a base record for 40 years, Ethan said. "They said you trained half the sniper school. Some say you were one of the best who ever lived." William gave a small shrug. "Records fade, medals get boxed up. What matters is who you show up for when no one's watching." Ethan looked down at the canvas bag again. Beneath the cleaning cloths and worn earplugs, he found a leather folder, edges cracked with age. Inside, newspaper clippings, a yellowed certificate, a black and white photo. A younger William kneeling beside two soldiers, one in a wheelchair, the other with a bandaged arm. The headline read, "Army Sharpshooter Rescues Unit from Ambush, Refuses Medal." Ethan glanced up. "I found this online years ago." "I didn't know it was you." William ran his thumb along the edge of the photo. His eyes softened. "Those boys didn't make it home. Only reason that article exists is because Parker, the one sitting there, lived long enough to tell it." He was silent for a moment. "After that day, shooting didn't feel like skill anymore. It felt like memory, so I taught others. Let the young ones carry it." Ethan didn't speak. He just nodded, the kind of nod that means I understand, even if I wish I didn't. Outside, the sun dipped low, casting long shadows across the field. A few recruits lingered near the entrance, the same ones who'd laughed earlier. Now they lined up quietly, waiting to shake his hand, not out of obligation, but respect. Each one said the same thing, "Thank you, sir." William only nodded, his hand firm but gentle. He didn't talk about ambushes or records or the ones he'd lost. He didn't need to. His silence said enough. The next morning, the range was empty again. No shouting, no orders, just the hum of wind through the flagpoles. William came early, not to shoot, but to sit. He carried only a thermos of coffee and his old cap tucked under his arm. At the far end, Ethan was already waiting with 4 new recruits. The same boys who had once smirked now held fresh targets under their arms, eyes serious. When they saw the old man, they straightened. "Private Hayes," William called out. "These boys any good?" Ethan smiled. "Better than they were. Still got room to learn?" "Always." "Good," William said. "Keep them steady." He stayed behind the line that morning, sipping coffee, watching quietly. Every so often, Ethan would glance back just to make sure his grandfather was still there. And William always was. As they packed up, Sergeant Miller approached, hat in hand. "I owe you an apology," he said. "I thought you were just someone tagging along. Didn't realize I was standing in front of the man half our manuals are based on." William shook his hand. "We all start somewhere, Sergeant. What matters is how we finish." Miller nodded, then added quietly, "We framed it, your shot from yesterday. It's going up next to the old plaque in the main office." William chuckled softly. "Still have that plaque, huh?" Miller smiled. "We do now." Before he left, Ethan caught up to him. "They're going to talk about you now, the others. You'll be remembered." William took a sip from his thermos, eyes on the horizon. "I'm not worried about being remembered," he said. "I'm just glad someone else knows the story now." He put on his cap and walked back toward the truck, his limp barely noticeable in the morning light. Ethan watched him go, a small figure against the endless stretch of field, and realized that legacies aren't measured by noise. They live quietly in the way a man holds himself, the way he shows up, the way he finishes. 3 days later, a new frame appeared on the wall inside Camp Halden's range office. It hung beside an old wooden plaque, dust brushed away for the first time in years. Inside the new frame was a target, Lane 9, torn clean through the center. Below it, a small brass plate read, "William Hayes, Camp Halden, 1984. Return 2024. Still steady, still humble." Most people who passed by never noticed it at first, but the ones who did paused. And if you listen closely, you might hear a retired Marine in the corner whisper, "He missed once." then reminded us all what precision and grace really look like. Outside, near the old flagpole, Ethan found his grandfather sitting on a bench, a cup of black coffee in his hands, the cane resting unused at his side. You come to fire again? Ethan asked. William shook his head. No, he said, just came to hear it. To hear what? The sound, he said softly, tilting his head toward the range where another class of recruits was lining up. The rhythm of boots, the low murmur of commands, the distant crack of a rifle finding its mark. They sat together a long time, neither speaking, because some stories don't need to be told twice. Some legacies don't need applause or headlines. They just need silence, respect, and a bullet that finds its mark, even 40 years later.